That's Wayne Shorter getting things started on this tune, which is titled Footprints. Herbie Hancock is on piano, Reggie Workman is on bass, and Joe Chambers is on drums. This is from Shorter's 1967. Yes, he's been around since that time. 1967 album titled Adam's Apple. This is Leid Stories. I'm Utrice Leid. It's Free Your Mind Friday. Just to alert those joining us for the first time, Free Your Mind Friday is when we just depart completely from our normal schedule and we leave it open entirely. The program is entirely up to whatever it is you want to call in and talk about, but the hope is that you have a point of view and you're able to get that point across. It's really not important whether people agree or disagree with you. It is that you come to an open forum and you do your best to make your case. And we listen, and some people may react, or some people may not react. But the idea is that you need a place to express exactly what you're thinking, and that's what Free Your Mind Friday is all about. We start off with E from Edgewater. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Utrice. Hope you're doing well
Hello.
today.
How are you?
Hanging in there, doing the best we can during, with such an upsetting situation that we're all faced with.
Yeah.
Trying the best to keep my mind from going to places that they want it to go to.
No, you want to hold on to your mind and rein it in if it is threatening to take you where you don't want to go. So what are you talking about today?
Well, it seems once again, I don't know why it is, but I seem to have a whole different view of what's been going on since, say, the middle of March. And I have a different explanation for why this all happened. And you have to go before the virus was unleashed in China. We knew two things. If you listen to PRN, then you knew two things was supposed to be happening soon. One, with the economy, was going to have a big crash on the stock market, and it would have been, according to men like Gerald Celente and Jack Rasmus and other financial experts, we were headed for a depression worse than the ones in the 1930s. So that would be very bad, not just for the United States, but for the rest of the world. China depends on a strong America to have a strong China, and so on and so forth. So, this is a big deal. They can't have the United States collapsing. The second thing we knew, if you listen to Gary Null's show, he's been telling us for the last year about a mandatory vaccine that they want to give us. And who wants to get forced to take a vaccine? Nobody wants to be forced to get the vaccine. They don't know what it is. But if you have a virus released into the society, and it's a deadly virus, then people hoping that they can come up with a vaccine that would be a cure for it, they would be glad to get it. They'd be lining up, first in line, give me that vaccine because I want to be protected from this deadly virus. All right, so those are these two things, the economic collapse and the vaccine. So how can they get people to take the vaccine without being forced? So I just explained it. You release a virus that you already have a vaccine for, but you're not going to let people know about it till after the election when Trump gets in again. Maybe in January, the vaccine will be all ready for us. Okay. That takes care of the economic collapse because that can all be blamed on the virus because we had to shut down the whole world because of this deadly virus. So all these businesses that weren't essential had to be closed down. And I'm saying to myself, how can they keep a supermarket open? Those people in the stores that work in there make so much money that they can risk their lives, but we can sit in our house all scared and cowering in the corner with our masks on and our ventilator. And the people that work in supermarkets that make like $8 an hour, they can go risk their lives every day. Doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so where are you going? Give
All
me
right,
a,
so
a, a
now
smooth
you have a
conclusion based on what
situation
you've laid out
that
so far.
we have an economic collapse. They had to reset the market to the right place because it's been going up artificially for the last 3 years since Trump got into office. To make him look good, the economy had to look good, and the unemployment figures was lower than ever before when it really wasn't. They've been lying to us all the time, so they had to get things to where it really is, and by using the virus to do that, then they don't get blamed for causing the bubble like the banks got blamed for the one in 2008,
Okay.
the collapse of the housing collapse. All right, I know I'm taking time here, but I'm getting to the final thing. So now you have businesses that have been out of business for 3 months. They're all hurting. How do you help them out? You need to have a riot. You need to have looting, burning, pillaging.
Oh, Lord. Debbie,
So then these
you really
businesses,
put this
instead of
whole thing
shutting,
together as one giant conspiracy.
yes, this is a grand cabal with two parts to it. First the virus, then the riots. The riots are then going to be
But
blamed
no,
by all
we,
these
we have to
businesses
move.
have
We
to
have
go.
to move on. We have a lot of people online waiting to air their views. But
Instead
you've
of going out of
given
business,
us
to
enough.
be able to get money from the insurance companies so they can go back into business again, so they can save the economy. They've done all these things. It's all going to be working out perfect for Donald Trump and his merry men. And I'll
All right.
probably
Well,
expand
thank
on
you,
it
but
more later.
I don't think I agree with your analysis, but I am glad that you're able to put it out there. Henry from Chicago, you're on the air.
Hey, Trees, how's it going?
Okay, how are you?
All right, all right. Just hanging in there, just like the rest of the world. Want to wish everybody in the PRN and Leid Stories listening audience, including you, Trees, a happy, safe, and productive weekend.
Thank you. So,
I
what are
wanted
you
to.
telling us this weekend?
Okay, so one of the topics that has arisen in the last week is the topic of defunding slash deconstructing the police across the nation. Now, from my opinion, I don't think, as far as dismantling police forces in different cities, I don't think that's a very good idea. Because for one, there is, when they're talking about dismantling police forces, there's nothing that's been put in place to replace it. And it makes me wonder about, okay, so if you're going to dismantle a police force, what are you putting in its place? So I think that's a very dangerous option in regards to dismantling police forces, not in the sense of just crime rising, because I don't think crime is going to rise. But what I think is going to happen is you're going to find the rise of militias and deputized cavalries that will probably serve as the replacement of police forces with no type of overhead authority. And so basically you'll just have standing armies within this country that will probably be under the order of somebody who is not in the best interest of, whatever community they possibly attack. Because, you think about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and, and all these other Black Wall Street cities that got destroyed by, white militiamen. So, I'm definitely afraid of that. I am somewhat in favor of defunding the police, not in terms of just totally taking the budget out, but taking out, the parts of militarization. Police don't need to be militarized. You don't need to be having, cannons and, flying, Israeli agents from the Mossad training, police forces, that can be taken out and redirect some of those funds into something more productive. But also, too, I also wanted to give my perspective on that because, I think too many people are being emotional in regards to this, defunding the police and, talking about,
we don't understand it. We don't understand it yet. We don't understand what the proposal or proposals are and how it's going to work. That I'm waiting for a definitive explanation, and it hasn't come yet.
And that's what
I'm trying to figure out what this means.
And that's what bothers me. Now, there is one proposal that was ran across by a local Illinois. He's the state's attorney for Illinois, Kwame Raoul, who brought something about 5 years ago that was basically voted down, and that was the idea of licensing policemen. I don't know if this has been brought up before. It may have been, but this was the first I heard of it about 5 years ago, and it's resurfacing again because out of all the professions that we have, policemen are the only ones that are not licensed. And you figure if you license policemen, now this won't completely eliminate police terrorism, but obviously these policemen who have killed these unarmed black men have already had a history of police abuse. And if you have licensing, you can actually take away the licenses of these policemen who have already abused their authority, and they won't be able to, go to another police department like some of these policemen who have been fired from one police department, they just go to another one. So I think it's a start if you can do something like that in regards to licensing police.
Well, we are going to try to understand this better because they're throwing out a lot of ideas right now. They're throwing it up against the wall to see what sticks. And we don't have a thorough understanding on what is the concept yet. And people are becoming very cagey about it because we don't know exactly how it's supposed to work. So let's give them a little bit more time, and they can educate us as to what this is, how it works, where is it working now, where is it working effectively, and what would be the advantages. Because there should be that kind of conversation. We shouldn't accept, well, okay, let's get it done. No, we need to understand it very, very carefully. Thanks for calling in. Thank you. Jay from New York, you're on the air. Hello, Jay. Okay. Mohammed from Yonkers, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Utrice.
Good afternoon.
I sincerely hope your condition continue to improve. I would just you're very welcome. I couldn't make it on Tuesday, so I would just like to give analysis of this situation, if I might. Is that okay?
Yeah, if you can do it fast enough.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do it. I'm gonna try to do it fast. Okay, what's really happened is the world is seeing America for what it is. The national police are here to police the people in this particular country. The international police is the military. When we saw what happened in Vietnam, the whole United States protested, so they had to stop. So the next wars, they didn't let you see what was happening because of the humanity of even the people here would stop it. So now the people in Syria, Vietnam, Iraq, they seeing what America came and did to them. And now the rest of the world is also protesting. They said now they're not doing it to us. They're still doing it to us. They're doing it to their own people. So they have determined, and that's just one aspect of it, they have determined that the oppressor, the enemy, is those handful. And with the police, you will not be able to abolish them under capitalism because so few has so much, so many has so little, and that's the buffer zone. When they get ready to start to take it back, that's what the police are for. Thank you for hearing me.
No, but before you go, you didn't make quite clear in this whole reorganization or the intended reorganization, where exactly would you place the police?
Well, you're going to always need the police in a capitalist society. But once we deconstruct this and take it apart, the police will come from the community, not from outside. These people are here to protect the wealth of I shouldn't say the wealth, but the result of the hard work of the few, of the many. That's what the police are here for. And you always have to have an unemployment rate. That is so when the people strike or go on a strike and form unions, the police are here to break that up. So you're not going to be able to take away the police. I mean, you need some police and you need it in the community, but when you look at our old societies, you had shamans, you had chiefs, and you look at the old societies, they had a person you could go to with their particular problems. If everyone have a home like they should, if someone came from another planet and came down here and saw all these people without homes and all these empty homes, they'll say, what in the world is wrong with these people? So in a society where there's justice, everyone would have a home and everyone could have a little garden somewhere they could plant and people could exchange. And we come to that one day. Thank you. Did that
Thank you.
answer?
Thanks for calling in and contributing today. Ed from New York, you're on the air.
Yeah, good afternoon, Trace. How you feeling?
Okay, how about you?
I'm here, me and my thumbs, as usual.
You and your thumbs.
So, me and my thumbs, hanging in these interesting times. I just wanted to give a little clarification as far as what's happening with the police and this movement, or with the death of Mr. Gray and what exactly is going on. The main call now is for defunding, and it said this was brought up before under a different name. Community policing was brought up years ago. The idea is that the police play too much of a role in civic society. They're called for everything from domestic disputes to disputes to the homeless situation to the mentally ill, and society used to have facilities to handle those things. Kings County, Creedmoor, Bellevue for the mentally ill. We used to have a large social network. We used to have social programs to help. And the police became indoctrinated into that as funding was cut to these programs and given to the police. And the call for defunding of the police basically is to take the funding for their militarization, for their enforcement, for their numbers, and put it back into the social network or social programs, which I feel is a good idea. It's a way to go with this that is not going to take. It's not going to be something that's unrealistic. I mean, you're not going to abolish the police force. You're not going to be able to completely destroy them and put something new for many reasons to the fraternal power of the police, to the actual political power of the police. But I think defunding is a good start, and I think it is a good way to go with this movement. I think we need to take away a lot of the money that are in city budgets for the police. And even Cuomo signed a bill today, executive order, by April the 1st. He wants the mayors in New York to come up with different ideas or different ways to take away funding from the police and to put it back into the social order. And if they don't do it by April the 1st, they won't get any state funding. If we can stay on that course, I think that's a good move to come out of all of this. But aside from that, as far as destroying the police, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
But doesn't it make you feel a bit uneasy that this very assignment is outside of the scope of the people being asked to construct an alternative? Shouldn't it be people who are in law enforcement who know how these things work? A mayor, yes, I could see a mayor thinking that he or she has enough information to organize. And I think, it's important for these people, heads of municipalities, they should have some input in all of this. But I still believe that we really need not rush into this idea of defunding the police department until we understand what it is we're looking at.
Well, I agree with you to a certain extent, but I also believe we do understand what we're looking at. I mean, we're asking these law enforcement officers to perform tasks and to do things that they, number one, are not trained for. Number two, I don't believe they have an intent to do that as far as the culture, the internal culture and the internal history of policing in the United States. So I don't think that they could fit that agenda. I think we need to have people outside of the law enforcement arena looking into this specifically. I mean, they may be allowed to give some comment, but I think we need a force outside of the law enforcement area to work this out, to see how it can be laid out effectively. Because I do believe that we need to reinvigorate social sources. We need mental health outreach programs. We need housing. We need all of these things contribute to the fact that causes a situation where the police can brutalize us. And we can't just, it's not just defunding the police per se to take away their power, but limiting their scope as far as dealing with the public and having the right person, the right officers to deal with the right situation so we can come to a proper solution.
So could I advance a thought here for you and to have you think about it? This has been happening for years. The idea that the police should be everything to the community, that's not what operated in white communities years ago. In white communities, those services were identified and funded. You didn't have police officers running in pretending to be psychiatrists or securing housing. No. Those communities were well funded, and the services offered were separate, discrete services for which they got the right people to fill the job. They had social workers, they had psychiatrists and psychologists, but these things didn't happen in Black neighborhoods. The prevailing thought, and this goes back for decades, was that Black people just needed to be controlled. They don't need counseling. They don't need job training. They just need to be controlled and punished if they commit crimes.
Yes, that's my point exactly. You got to look at the whole scope. There's been 500 years of disenfranchisement of the Black community in this country. The American descendants of slaves in this country have been totally removed from society and denied the ability to become, quote unquote, the American version of white. That's a debt that needs to be paid. I don't care what anybody says. You call it reparations, call it whatever you want. It's a debt that needs to be paid because there was an active government system that ostracized African Americans in this country for close to 500 years. And as a result of that, now we come upon the situations of police brutality. Now we come upon the situations of where the police look at the Black community as animals that need to be controlled and subdued and contained, and not given the benefit of, hey, social programs, education, medical assistance, these things that help promote a community, these things that a community that best serve a community's interests. That's what we need to concentrate on. Control police brutality, but that is a symptom of the problem that this country has created for the past 500 years. And until that issue is taken care of, we're never going to get to the real root of the problem. I mean, the funding is good, like I said, but the real issue is how do we redress the 500 years of persecution that was taken out on a specific group of the population and rectify that situation?
Well, I don't know. That's a tall order. But I do know
but
that where we could start is looking at accountability for the creation, literally, of ghettos. How did it happen that our communities were, minus all the things that you would expect a decent community to have? Affordable housing, jobs that pay a decent wage. These are the things that we were specifically denied. And so when they're talking now about the police and the new role for the police and all of that kind of stuff, don't forget, we're coming behind decades and decades of racist policy making.
Yes.
And it's not going to be rectified very easily at all.
Well,
so
we've got to get past the point of discussion and to the point of action. Like I always say, I'm still looking for my 40 acres and my mule. Where is it? Where is it?
Well, I don't know if I could even handle 40 acres or a mule. But thanks, Ed, for contributing today.
Or the dollar equivalent.
Or the equivalent. Jay, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Utrice. I hope you are doing well. I hope the listening audience-ship is doing even better.
Well, thank you.
First of all, we need to really pay attention to this dog whistling that's going on by the president in regards to this so-called rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the speech that he will be presenting written by Stephen Miller. It's getting to be a real dangerous point in this country in regards to race and race relations. And, sadly to say, black people and some other minority groups in this country are not ready nor in the position to protect themselves from this evil. And it seems like this president is hell-bent on pushing this narrative of white nationalism to hopefully get himself reelected. And it's extremely dangerous because a lot of us are not physically prepared, militarily prepared, or even mentally prepared to understand what he's doing. And
I think we understand exactly what he's doing. He's not that deep. He really isn't.
No, we don't.
We have a handle on we have had a handle on the president for quite a while. He's not that deep. We get it. What is the problem for us is that what is to be our strategy? And we haven't gotten to the point of really planning effective counteroffenses to it. How do we teach people how to handle a Trump? All of this stuff, and he's opening up his speech on Juneteenth and doing all kinds of things to irritate black people, to get them to be fearful and get whites back into that old canard of it's us and them. This is the level that he's most comfortable functioning at. We just have allowed him to, have free reign.
Well, I think our strategy has to be, number one, to open up the eyes to the people of what's going on. Then to collectively figure out what is going to be the strategy to protect ourselves and move forward. Now, everybody is making it seem like the election of a senile individual like Joe Biden is going to change anything. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure if he was to become elected, it may become worse. Because then you're really going to have an opening of diffractions in display, and I don't think we collectively understand how we're gonna deal with it. I don't think we're gonna be woke enough to even address it. Just like with Obama, we wasn't woke after he was elected to do the necessary things to make him do something for everyone. I mean, if you look at most other groups in this country, they positioned themselves to make him do things for them. We were the only one who were just happy because he was in office. Now here it is 11 years later, and we in more of a bond socially, economically, politically, morally, spiritually than we were 11 years ago. I mean, at some point in time, we're going to have to figure out what are we going to do for our survival. And to be honest with you, I don't really care about other races. I don't care about other groups. I'm strictly about African people. And until we realize that we need to come together like other groups do, we're just going to be in this same vicious cycle, looking for a savior that is not nothing but an enemy.
It is not enough to say that people should come together. Yeah, people have been saying this for centuries. Let's get together. No. You have to have systems. You have to have systems that are uniquely tailored to your circumstances and your interests. We have not taken the time to construct systems. We believe that, well, it's so much work. Let somebody else handle it. And they handle it. Now, we don't like the consequences. We don't like the results. But nothing has actually stood in our way of organizing ourselves except us. You can't just, it's like this move to defund the police. Yes, everybody is saying defund the police, but that's not the issue, is it?
No.
No, exactly. So first we study the situation and we identify what is the top issue or the top 2 or 3 issues. Defunding the police is not an answer to the problems that we have and the solutions that we need. But we get into this thing all the time. Joe Biden is not the best candidate, but he ended up being the best candidate. And now the issue is people now have to adjust to a decision in which they had no participation whatsoever.
Well, defunding the police, the way that they're talking about it now, I don't see it doing anything because the systematic changes that's going to need to be put in place are not going to happen. Now, I will say this. I will ask you a possibility of you getting in touch with somebody from Camden, New Jersey, who defunded the police and from my understanding has been very successful and should be the model on how to defund the police
because
and
Camden
move forward.
is not that successful either. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
No, it has been. It has been based on the numbers, the reducing crime, the lack of police brutality. Nah, Utrice, you need to talk to someone. It has been.
I'm saying this. I'm saying this. We have to take a very different tact on things. It's very important to talk to people who have had a particular experience and they can share what the benefits have been and also what the downsides have been, because believe me, there are still downsides. But we can't all rush to this idea because somebody has uttered the phrase, let's defund the police, and now this is the newest call. We don't know what you're getting into. No 2 communities are exactly alike. And so this is really about customizing a response depending on what the unique needs are. Not every community is the same.
Yeah, but you have to build on what is in front of you that could be used as a roadmap to improve. I mean, it's just an example on how you improve on it and how you take it to other communities and make the necessary adjustments. If you don't do that,
but we
how
are
could you
missing
achieve
a
anything?
lot. We are missing a lot of the implications here. We're going for, the hard sell. People are selling us an idea, and it looks good. It looks like a logical thing to do. But we don't know. We haven't studied it. Because there are so many aspects that have to be studied here before you make a decision like that.
Talk to somebody to be able to study a subject matter. You have to be able to look at the information and the data to move forward on studying what the groundwork
again, people assume that what goes well in Camden can work in Bedford-Stuyvesant. And it's not.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying using it as a template, as an idea, as a base to be able to do what may need to be done in Bedford-Stuyvesant and other places. You need something.
Well, here's what I said a long time ago. A long time ago, I came up with a very simple idea of how to transform your community and take a hold of it. Did you hear me? You start with a broom. You start with a broom and you clean up your neighborhood and you instill some discipline and you communicate that somebody is in charge here. You don't have a bodega on every block. You don't have your children outside in the street at 11 o'clock at night. That was my idea many years ago. Operation Broom. Get yourself a little broom. And every Saturday or whatever day you choose, the broom brigade is out there cleaning the neighborhood. You'd be amazed about the transformation a broom can bring. But we're tempted to see the thing entirely differently. No. You need discipline. You need a disciplined community. You don't need children out in the street. These are some of the things when you tidy up your neighborhood and you take control, people are more likely to listen to what you have to say and evaluate what they need to do next.
I agree with you. And look, get somebody else on and have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Thanks so much. Patricia from New York, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, Utrice, and good afternoon to the PRN family. I hope all is well.
Thank you.
I think I started working at Harlem Hospital in the early 80s when crack just hit Harlem. And I worked long hours, and it was not unusual for me to leave the hospital at midnight. And I left the hospital at midnight one time and turned the corner, heading to my car, and I passed a building. And, because of the hour, I always made certain that I was aware of my surroundings. I passed a building, didn't see anyone. After I passed the building, a voice behind me said, "Don't worry, Doc, we're looking out for your car." And that was the first time that I realized that the community recognized that I was not an interloper, that I was not the enemy, that I was there to work on behalf of Black and brown women, and that they were protecting me. So what does this have to do with the police? I agree with you that this whole mantra about defunding is not about defunding the police. It's about, and this may very well be my own dream, but it's about reorganizing the police, utilizing individuals who are not afraid of black and brown people, because that's what the first thing that police always say was, I feared for my life. Well, then you need to get people in there who are not afraid of the people in the community. So, if I were able to have input, and there's no reason why I can't, I have elected officials, and I think that's going to be my input. So in the same way that the Hasidims in Brooklyn have their own organization that patrols the streets, with the consent of all elected officials and the police department, I would suggest that the Nation of Islam is given a contract to police, a paid contract to police the streets, because they are not afraid of black and brown people. And that's really what you need. The other issue is when facilities were closed in the 80s and 90s that addressed the issues of the mentally ill, they were closed to save money. They didn't care that they were putting all of these individuals on the street with no resources, with no assistance, with no backup of any kind. They just closed them and deposited them on the street specifically to save money. Well, now I think that money needs to be the budget for the police department in New York City is $6 billion. I'm sorry, $6 million. $6 million. Take $1 million out of that. Take $2 million. Forget the $1 million. Take $2 million out of that, and reorganize resources so that when a parent calls because she can't control her mentally ill child, the police does not come with guns. So that when someone calls for someone who's passing a bad $20 bill, the police is not called. Because these are not areas that the police are competent to address. And when you send somebody with a gun for all of these areas that they were never trained for and lack the skill and resources, bad things happen. So I say, bring the Nation of Islam into our communities. They're not afraid of our people.
I'm with you on that. Thanks for calling. Robert from London, you're on the air.
Oh, hi, Chris. I just thought I'd probably give you a call to give you the London edge of the whole story. And probably, I guess we're a little bit more militant. We just cleared out some statues and threw them inside a river, and and then the whole country starts the conversation. But before that, no one had anything to say. I'm not out on the street protesting, even though I'm for the protest. But for me, the reason being, I don't think, we are doing for ourselves. I haven't listened to all your contributors today, because we're in isolation. We're locked in. So there's 101 things going on. However, we keep looking to other people for the solution. Oh, what should the police do, or what should the government do? Well, why should we do that? If we look at the Orthodox Jewish community, they are quite insular. They're to themselves, and they spend their money with their own people. So you're going out on the street protesting, and you get all these kids like, Black Lives Matter, wearing their Nike T-shirts that were probably made in sweatshops in Bangladesh or wherever it is, and then they're saying, we want better rights. We want better rights. But you're backing the same brand that oppress your people or oppress people like you, poor people. It's not a black issue. It's a poverty issue. Do you know what I mean? From my perspective anyways. So from the U.S. perspective, I don't see why, you're in the street protesting and no one really knows what you want. Boycott, do what we did. Do what our ancestors did. The bus boycott of the day, when these corporations start feeling it in their pocket, then they realize, because how many of these guys protesting are wearing like this latest sneakers, trainers, whatever you guys call them, walking around the street talking about, no justice, no peace. How about you, instead of taking your money to buy some of these really expensive stuff, look to other people in your community who have been making shoes, or, parts of Africa that are making shoes, buy some of those. Stop funding the people that make your laws, like, the corporations that are funding ALEC, for argument's sake. Stop funding those corporations, and they take their money to ALEC, and then ALEC makes laws that oppresses black people. That's just my 2 cents on it, in any case.
All right. Well, thank you for contributing today. Good to hear from you. Thanks a lot. Ma'at from New York, you're on the air.
Yes, greetings to the beloved community. I
Thank
really
you.
vibed with a lot of the callers, and I thought Patricia's about the fruit of Islam. That's an excellent idea. I also want to make a couple points. Camden, New Jersey is a very interesting case. During a budget crunch and a lot of recognized corruption, everyone was fired, including the chief of police. They had to reapply. The chief got his job back. And because there was more of a partnership, crime, murders, homicides went down, serious crimes went down precipitously, and the complaints of police abuse decreased 95%. So there's something there, and I understand. I don't know the details at Trenton also. Language is important. So redesigning, defunding the police, that's something of significance. We're at an inflection point. But what is missing in all of this is that until we have both a national and, if you will, municipal/local Truth and Reconciliation Commission, something serious and on point so that we understand the whole history of the slave patrol into the Ku Klux Klan being prominent in all the police departments, the gangs of New York and Philadelphia, the Italians against the newer immigrants, say the Irish. That's until we get down to the debt that I think Ed mentioned, because you know, we hear the immigrants talking about, well, we just came here 2 generations, and we had nothing to do with it. Well, you came to a place that's the richest on the planet, and infrastructure where even if you're poor, you're likely, except if you're Navajo, perhaps have running water and sanitation. And so until we deal with truth and reconciliation, before you get to reparations, that's ahead of things, then you can redesign and defund the police. That's very important, and what's being missed in a lot of this.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our program today. Lots of opinions, lots of things to think about, and that's the whole point. Just put your ideas out there. You never know. You may have sparked something in somebody's mind, or listening, we could come back to it again as a topic of discussion on the program. But it is always good to know what you're thinking. Very good to know. It's the weekend is here, and as I always say, surround yourself with people who bring positive dimension to your life, who add something to your life. And, try and do some good somewhere. But also keep thinking deeply. We need it now more than ever. We need to do some deep thinking. So we'll join each other again Monday. Hopefully we'll all be here together again. And until then, thanks so much for everything. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.